Yeah. Right. So where do we start with the daily inspection?
Fuel. There's some quality of fuel that's going into the aircraft.
Yeah, that's right. All those sorts of things. Anything else you can think of? Anybody?
Looking at the helicopter, make sure it's standing at the right angle.
Ooh, yeah, pretty good. So, see if I can do this from here. Shouldn't be a problem. Oh, great. Where's my phone decided it's not going to
Yeah.
carry on charging? It's probably too hot, and that's it. So I got it plugged into a battery pack. Sorry for a bit wobbly. There you are. Look, there's one helicopter.
Nice. R22? No,
44.
44, yeah. Okay.
And it's going to get a parking ticket in a minute, according to the sign.
Bit long.
So no, it's a good point, Sue. So it does look like it's standing, you know, upright, etc., etc. So that's a good point. And so it's that classic of where do you start? Do we go look at the helicopter first? Because what we're trying to do here is not an entire prep everything for flight. We're just trying to think about the helicopter. So if when we do a matey brief, we're looking at the weather. Excuse me. The A would be the aircraft, the T would be ATC. So thinking about the service and the procedures and frequencies you might be calling. E is the exercise, and D is the duties of the people or the pilots on board, and the worst sort of thing. So we're into the A of the mated brief, the aircraft, but it potentially is everything to do with the aircraft. So what sort of jobs have we got to do?
Paperwork.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've got to check the paperwork because there's nothing worse than going spending an hour or whatever checking your helicopter, come back inside and realise the paperwork's no good. There's something not right. Maybe it's not insured, it expired, or all those sorts of things. So that's what we're saying about what's a good place to start. So we've got to make sure the documentation is all up to spec first. Well, not necessarily first of all, but it'd be a good place to start because you're already indoors, especially in winter time. So what other things might we want to prepare or look at?
Oh, I'm on a Zoom meeting. So
We've got Stuart here as well. Look.
Oh, there. Wait.
Yeah, that's right. The weight and balance of the aircraft that falls within there as well, doesn't it? Of prepping the aircraft. So therefore, we need to work out. Okay, well, who's on board? Where are we going? How much fuel, etc., etc., etc. So that needs to be done.
Would
yeah,
the suitability of the craft for what you're planning on doing, would that be a part of the A check, Paul? Say, for example, you wanted to go, I don't know, you wanted to go up Mount Everest, and
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, that 244's one's got air conditioning, one hasn't. So there's a choice to be made, isn't there? When it's blistering hot out there, if possible, yeah, we'd definitely choose the one with aircon if that was an available option side of things. But we sort of let's just say we've narrowed it down to we're checking Surdy. That's the one we're going to be doing, and we've looked to the weight and balance for the journey. We've only got a total of an hour of flying, so we've looked at the weight and balance and the fuel that we need, etc., all those sorts of things. So we are now really sort of drilling down into, before we walk out to the helicopter, pretty much it's just going to be the documentation, isn't it, side of things, as far as checking is concerned. There's always other jobs to be done. But yeah, so we'd want to run through what sort of things we've got to look for in the documentation.
um, airworthiness review.
Yeah, that's right.
Um, yeah, your insurance, the radio license.
That's right. Now, potentially, there's a nice long list, but we'd would want you to know rather than just simply relying on a list. And I'm not going to go into it all now, but there is obviously a formal list of all the various documents that should be in here. That way, you'll know if something's missing. But it is always handy to actually have a list. Of course, it is, without a shadow of a doubt. Um, so just sort of whizzing through, we've got certificate of registration of the aircraft, which doesn't actually mean necessarily who owns it. It's just who it's registered to.
hmm
Certificate of airworthiness, and of course, all the time we're checking that it is actually for the correct aircraft. So you can see the registration and the aircraft serial number 11745. And the date of issue was 30th of May 2008, but no expiry of this because it then has a airworthiness review certificate, and again checking it's the right helicopter, etc., etc. And therefore it can be renewed annually. And you can see now we've got a date of expiry stamped, etc., 23rd of June 2027. So that's looking good. Noise certificate, not that it's going to make any difference to us to make the thing fly or not, but of course it needs to have one of those. Radio license, a bit like a TV license. So in here, you need to make sure that it's, of course, got the correct details. The expiry dates can sometimes be a little tricky to work out. That's why I've actually put it on there, because there was a interim period where the documentation changed. And so some of these licenses weren't, for instance, for a full 3 years, and you don't have to do them for 3 years anyway. But I've put it in there and just made it in bold so you can actually see when it expires. Then we've got insurance, of course. Make sure you are actually insured. I'm not going to go right the way through that tonight as far as delving into the deep depths of helicopter insurance, but you just need to make sure when it comes down to things like pilots, your name isn't in here. So how are you as approved by the insured? But that's another story for another time. Or if we get time, we'll talk about it later. Weight and balance schedule. Of course, then you'll do your weight and balance calculation. And in this helicopter, we've got our deferred defect sheet. So if you find a fault with the helicopter, but we can go flying, we need to defer it, and it can be potentially put in there. Then we've got the actual forecast of the helicopter. So this is where we also need to double check. Does it actually have hours left on it? So we'd need to see when the next inspection is due. So we've got a 50-hour 6-month inspection due at 1175.7 or the 5th of Feb 2027. Obviously, the usual things, double checking it really is for the particular helicopter we're looking at. That was the last service it had done, so that's its release. This is all to be the separate oil change. And Sir D's got a separate oil change, oil topping up sheet. Oops. How am I going to do that? Just bear with, somebody else wants to join. That's it. So we keep a close record of how much oil we've put in the aircraft. And then we'll finally get through to sort of what you more commonly see as aircraft sector record pages, etc. So we've got, just double checking, I said it was a 50-hour 6-month due at 1175.7, and it is actually due a separate oil change as well prior to that point. And we're currently on 1140.7. So a quick glance, you can see we've allegedly already got 35 hours left to run on it before it needs that service. But we'd also want to double check that DACON is correct in the aircraft, of course, just to verify that. Okay, so having satisfied ourselves that the helicopter documentation's okay, remember this is not a full-blown mated brief, so you can just, for instance, assume that the weather, etc., is all suitable. iPad, yeah, it's where would checking the iPad sort of fall into as far as the daily inspection? Is it part of it, or is it something separate?
Something separate?
Well, where would that fall within your sort of mated brief?
That you've got your flight planning sorted and
Oh, do you want to video me doing some of this as well, Megan? Yeah, I think Captain said just do the whole lot. Yeah. Sorry, Sue.
what was I going to say? The, the iPad needs to work so that you can put your flight plan.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
first of all, let's make sure we understand we don't need the iPad. It's not,
No.
it's not essential, but it is a useful bit of kit, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we shouldn't be heavily reliant upon it as such. But if we when we do all of our flight performance and planning on our charts and kneeboard, etc., yeah, that's more towards the sort of the exercise, isn't it, of the matey briefs? That's the E part. But the iPad kind of sort of forms part of the equipment of the aircraft, doesn't it? So it is something, therefore, we should check. It's not built in, is it? So it's not rigidly mounted in the aircraft, but it is something we're going to take. So is there anything we ought to check on that then?
It's charged. It works.
Yeah, absolutely, that it works. So that it's charged sufficiently, although we're going to plug it in the aircraft as well. But something to think about, and especially as in the hot weather that we have had, if the battery's quite low on the iPad and you plug it in, what happens to it?
Overheats.
Yeah, it heats up because it's trying to recharge the battery, and they get hot, don't they? We tend to find if it's already fully charged, of course, it doesn't necessarily get quite as hot as if the battery is been run down, where it's trying to pump it in, where it's trying to absorb that current. So it'd be a good idea to make sure it's fully charged before you go flying. And if you're using it with something like Sky Demon, what should we?
Nice to have a Scott Demon as a backup as well. As a
Yeah, I
bundle.
mean, don't I say I don't want to kind of go down the rabbit hole of. Remember, we will have our maps with us and our plugs, etc., etc. But we're just trying to look at not just simply the aircraft, because this often happens when we say, right, let's do a daily inspection. Everybody sort of runs straight to the aircraft. You think, well, hang on, shouldn't we check that it's A, the right one we should be using, and B, it's got some hours on it, because it hasn't. There's no point looking at it, is there? And make sure the documentation's okay. We can do all that indoors. And if we are going to be using something like the iPad, a piece of equipment that is, like I said, it's a kind of, it is part of the aircraft because it's going to be fixed in there, isn't it? So as much as we would prep our map, we better make sure that the iPad is functional. I'm not talking about necessarily putting the route on there per se. I'm just talking about making sure that as a piece of equipment, it's ready. Because what you don't want to be doing is think, oh, that's right, we'll use the iPad quite a bit. And then you get in the helicopter and fire up and get up in the air and it's not working. So there's quite a few things to think about with it. So Skydemon, you want to make sure it actually works. That the maps, the charts are updated within Skydemon, that the actual app itself is also running the latest app. And because we're using, as we'll see in the aircraft, Pilot Awares, we need to make sure that the license on the Pilot Aware is up to date. Now, I keep an eye on that quite closely. But because we run it through Pilot Aware, if the Pilot Aware license, which is an annual thing, has expired, it won't work. You'd have to run Skydemon just simply on the GPS receiver of the iPad itself, which is why they have that black band across the top. So if it doesn't have a black band, it's no good to you. It doesn't have a GPS built into it. Okay, so I'm just going to pretend for a second. I've turned the iPad on. It's fully charged. Skydim is all updated. And then I would put it in the aircraft and plug it in and just make sure it's got a charge on it as well. But it's working. Fantastic. And we can go and do that. It's not a problem at all. We're just trying to think of all the extra things, even before we get to the helicopter itself, as far as what you might consider a pre-flight or daily inspection is concerned. Anything else? So I'm now just trying to make you think of, oh, what about?
So would the Pro camera and SIM card fall into that?
Absolutely, yeah, because we don't want you flying without it.
Mm.
Therefore, once again, you need to make sure it's not the top priority, but you need to make sure it works. So where you slot that into your daily inspection, you could do that straight away, so you know that's done, because that allows for any complications. You can get somebody else onto it. You can pop back into and say, look, the camera's not working because of whatever. The card says SD error or it just won't turn on, and we can start dealing with that for you whilst you check the helicopter. Yeah, good thinking, Sue. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I'll tell you what, we better do that, haven't we? So, I'm sorry, I'm rattling around here. I'm just looking in our pot. So I'm going to get an SD card, make sure it's mine. There we are. There's one of my ones. With the iPad, I'll tell you what we will do. We'll make sure the iPad works, okay? What else can you think of? How about you, Megan, hiding behind the phone over there? But she's there. And Holly's hiding behind me. Look, back down here. Tony's over there. I like the way they all scatter themselves. Look, in case they get picked on. You, over there. You in the corner. Come on in. It can be a bit more training for Tony as instructor. So, Tony, what else then? What else could we kind of fit within the kind of the prepping of the helicopter daily inspection side of things? The keys, yeah, absolutely. What about a thought of if we're going to be going somewhere quite far and landing away? Obviously, take that with us, yeah, in the bag, yeah. But what else? You just said about the keys.
Always carry a spare.
It's not a bad idea, is it? Just in case.
You don't have a helicopter that's halfway up the country.
Yeah, exactly.
Geese.
So it's not unusual if we go somewhere that's a reasonable distance. I've usually got all the spare keys with me. Yeah, because that'd be mighty embarrassing, wouldn't it? To lose the keys. All right, so I think we're sort of running out of ideas for indoors. Anything else as far as the helicopter's concerned? Holly, what do you think? Can you think of anything?
Well,
Nothing.
if you're me and you're very forgetful, you have to read a checklist about 9 times before you leave the room. So if there's one word of advice, it's to read the checklist and read it again to make sure that you've remembered everything and all those things you've already talked about are all on that checklist.
Ooh, yeah. What checklist do you mean?
Well, the one that's outside.
Oh, look, I've covered it over. So, yeah, and you can, of course, create your own ones. We've got a little checklist down here on the desk just to help remind, have you done everything? Have you got everything that you want with you? Oops, I just lost someone. Yeah, that's right. Thought I'd just cut them off. And we've got things like on the remember the daily inspection. I don't want to lose track of what I'm talking about. But on the list is things like the authorization sheet. Has that all been done? The tech log, then pilot's notices, blade inspection. So a lot of this you wouldn't necessarily put within the daily inspection per se. But yeah, helicopter keys, charged GoPro, SD cards, the things we were just talking about, the iPad. High vis, well, we need that anyway to be when a knee balls, flying plug, update charts, sunglasses, microphone covers or headset covers. And that kind of actually stemmed from sort of COVID times, but we still sort of carry on with that quite now. You know, we don't always share the same microphone cover. Anything else? Fuel, yes, of course. I'd say that fell within oil, engine oil, and cloth, and that would be sort of spare. You know, if we think we might need to top it up when we're out wherever it is we're going, and then we carry our documents in one of these.
There's certain legal paperwork that you've got to take with you, like interception procedures as well, isn't there, Paul?
Yeah, very good. Yes. And again, that gets forgotten about within the daily inspection. If we're not careful, we just think the helicopter, don't we? And to be fair, yes, of course it is. That's really the one of the major parts of it, isn't it? Inspecting the helicopter. But what about all the periphery, all the bits around it? Yeah, absolutely. Now, whilst we're on that, 'cause it's a very good subject, 'cause it cropped up quite recently. It was sort of we had a CEO audit recently, as we do. Well, actually, our next one potentially is 3 years. But anyway, look, and the nice inspectors, we went and had a look at the helicopters, and he sort of said to me, I said, you know, I'll look at the usual, make sure it really does exist, the aircraft, dual controls, first aid kit, sealed in date, as we'll look at in the helicopter, so we know there's nothing missing out of it. Flight manual for the actual aircraft, or pilot's open handbook if it's a 44, if it's a Robinson. And he said, what about interception procedures? I said, yes, you know, the aircraft usually have them.
Mm.
And it's a case of, however, what often happens or can happen is they go missing. They literally do. I don't know what happens to them. I'm sure nobody uses them. You know, the chance of being intercepted in around here or in the UK is pretty slim, however. So I said something next. What did I say next? They're usually in the aircraft. And sure enough, ta-da, there was one in there. But
Well, you can always have them on your in a knee pad. So
yeah, absolutely. So I teach, have your own ones.
Hmm.
Keep it in your knee board. Don't matter what helicopter you go in, you know you've got them with you. So you're fulfilling that requirement then. Is there anything else like that that you could have yourself rather than rely on them being in the aircraft?
of the signals, ground
Yeah,
signals.
absolutely. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, especially if you think you're going to go somewhere where you're going to be marshalled, that's
That's the
right.
word I
We
wanted.
could have
Yeah.
marshalling signal lists. A torch, yeah, absolutely. Surday's got one built in, you know, in a little holder. But what if the battery's flat? What if it's not powered enough? Yep, good.
What else? Clock.
Yeah, that's right. But we're going to check that serviceable anyway, aren't we? But yeah, you might want an additional one. It was one of the ones with sick bags.
Oh,
Now,
of course.
we all hope and pray we're never going to have to need them. Either A, for ourselves, because it's pretty awkward if you're flying and you want to be sick, but B, for your passengers. Hopefully, you're going to fly so beautifully and smoothly and keep them all nice and cool that they're never going to feel like that. But there are a few stories we could tell, but not for now. Maybe we'll leave that for human force limitations, whereby pilots have gone off without sick bags because they assumed they're in the aircraft, and they weren't. So now there's that moment of, oh gosh, what are we going to use?
And where are they kept?
Well, we have them on our racking.
Yeah.
For instance,
Oh,
it's usually
okay.
spares down here, but
Yeah.
you have your own ones. You get your own ones. So I've got ones in my kneeboard I've had for years. You just keep them in your kneeboard.
Yeah.
That way, if you take your kneeboard as part of your equipment with your plug on it and all your other things you have in there, you'll have your intercept procedures, your marshalling signals, etc., and sick bag or sick bags, and anything else, of course, you'd want to take. All right. Anything else you can think of, Tony? Now.
Oh, your license?
Yes, that's right. And that's a. Does that fall within the sort of daily inspection kind of prepping the helicopter?
Oh. Well, not so much the aircraft, but for your whole journey, for the whole flight.
Yeah, so it's a good. We do need to, but it'll be on the duties part of things. So the duties to say, well, you're the pilot in command, therefore
You should have your license.
you have your license and ID with you, of course. Yeah, okay, fine. So if you think of anything else, let me know. But otherwise, it's probably time we're going to actually have a look at the helicopter. So I shall grab a key. Who's coming out? Could you, Tony? Do you mind carrying those on me? I'll tell you what to be a favour. Just grab that as well. It's in case I start cutting as well. Thank you. Right, let's go find a helicopter. So we've got our high vis on, yeah, even though we're not going down to the helipad. Let's go. Well, look, he's possibly going to do something. Let's go this way. We'll go a safer way. Oh, Tony. No, there's nobody in there, is there? I was just thinking, don't lock Sue in. Oh, no, she's on land. Yeah. Oops.
So a quick one, Paul, while you're walking, that one
Okay.
about the license and ID, are you required to have them on you?
Yes, you are. Yes. All right. Now, Sue said about yes, just make sure it's sitting what you would how you'd expect evenly, or it could be on a bit of a slope. So we are on a tiny bit of a slope at the moment, so it's no surprise it looks like it's leaning back, only very slightly. So where we're going to start? Just bear with me. I don't know if you can hear it. There's an aeroplane behind us. It's a little bit noisy. It's going to taxi past in a second. Just over there. Okay, so what have you got if you can't remember how to do all this?
You've got the checklist in the helicopter.
Yeah, so we've got one for starting up and shutting down. Interception procedures. That's handy. It's already in here. A Robinson sort of startup checklist, which is very brief. And then, oops, bear with me because the seats are a little bit slippery. That's better strong now. That plane has. There we go. A Robinson Helicopter Company Model R44 Raven 2 daily or pre-flight checks. So you can literally follow this, can't you? Quite simply. And has everybody seen this before? I know you don't necessarily fly. Who's on? Got with us? If you in the Cadbury, it doesn't look like this, but it's still very similar at the end of the day. And of course, the R22 is basically the same. And it will start off with in a fairly logical order. For instance, around the right hand side of the helicopter, so starting off at here, then you might go up to the main rotors. So you can see in section 2. Then you come down lower cowl, aft cowl, engine rear, around the back of the helicopter. So you get into sort of tail rotor gearbox side of things. tail cone. So we're now around the left-hand side of the helicopter. Main fuel tank, fuselage left side, nose section. So now we're around the front. So fuselage right side, and then you're into the cabin inside. And then what we've got is they've made it so that there you can start tweaking it to your own helicopter. And we got on here, check the iPad is charged and plugged in. Check SkyDemon has the latest charts installed. Install your SD card in GoPro and check it records. The very things we were just talking about inside. So we've even got it on here just to remind you. And when it comes to things like PCs and skills tests and all these sorts of things, the examiner would expect you to follow this. Simple as that. Okay, so who can be the guinea pig then? Who's going to...
I can read.
Go on in, Stuart. Round you come then. Stuart very kindly has volunteered. Don't worry, you can all do a page each. All right.
From the outside.
Now, before we start, yes, you can do it without the checklist, but what's the risk?
You can forget something.
Yes, that's right. You might omit something, isn't it, etc. You might forget something. There is, in checking most helicopters, there's a bit of a logical order, and you just sort of heard that we were going to start probably from this side, go round, maybe up, round the back, end up round the left-hand side where Megan is. Hi, Megan. Etc. And then finally finish up inside the helicopter. And you could just stick to that routine, and it works. But you'd need to know all the very specific parts to be looking at whilst you're doing that. Something it doesn't say, though, where hasn't it said check?
Recommended.
Where hasn't it said not? There's somewhere on there it hasn't said to check.
Underneath? I didn't hear you say
It's
underneath.
very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So most checklists don't talk about actually looking under the helicopter. Sometimes there might be some sort of slight reference towards it. But what we're looking for under the helicopter?
Well, skids.
Yeah, oil leaks.
Yeah, things like fluid leaks, etc. Under the helicopter, damage, anything hanging off of it, these sorts of things. So we want to have a good old look underneath as well. So they don't always necessarily include that. Right, Stuart, so what's first on the list?
Okay, so just admitting we've done the general procedures. We didn't have the 8-foot step ladder.
No, okay, yeah.
Okay. Upper forward cowl doors, right side.
Yeah, okay, so it's not in between, that's fine. Upper forward cowl doors right side, and what are we looking for?
Well, initially, yeah, battery switch on.
Okay, where you go then?
Battery switch on. Do you want to look inside? Oil pressure auxiliary fuel pump lights on.
That's right. So we should have the normal lights you'd expect to see on. Now, what it doesn't say on that list is something we should quite often do before actually just turning that on. It's a good habit to get into for all your aircraft.
Circuit breakers before.
Just make sure things aren't switched on.
Yeah.
That you don't want on. What if somebody's left everything on? It's Holly. And that becomes applicable. Remember, this is, we're doing specifically an R44 today, but the process is the same if we're going to go and check the Jet Ranger, the 22, the Capt G2. It doesn't matter. It's the same kind of process, isn't it? And depending on how much you want to conserve the battery, it starts to...
You're frozen, Paul.
I was going to say, has he just crept out of range?
Yes. He's probably still talking.
How's that? Is that better? Give it a few seconds.
Yeah.
That's all right now, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, because what happens is the pilot aware, the FX we've got installed in the helicopter, turns on and it sends out a Wi-Fi signal. That's how everything connects to it. And so momentarily our phones connect to it thinking it's got Wi-Fi to the internet. And so, yeah, everything stops. And then what happens is after a short while on the phone, it flashes up. What does it say? It says, continue using Wi-Fi for the internet or use mobile data, I think it says. And you have to click on the option of use mobile data. And that way it remains connected Wi-Fi to the pilot aware. If for your traffic avoidance and that sort of stuff, or traffic awareness, I should say. And then for everything else, it uses your mobile data. So yeah, sorry about that. Right, okay.
Warning light test switches.
Yeah,
Push to test. And
that's it. Word was,
behind here.
they are indeed, yes. So just briefly thinking before we start opening like we did with the doors, are we in an area where there's lots of downwash? So because quite often we're on the helipad, if you've got other helicopters coming into land, what can happen with the downwash?
Damage the doors?
Around.
Yeah. It can damage anything that's left open, i.e. any doors. Doors have a habit of being ripped off of helicopters from the downwash. We've had one happen before. We only had the helicopter 2 weeks. Somebody opened it on the helipad, big 109 lands next to it, door came out of the person's hand, literally just held onto him, ripped it out of their hand and whacked into the screen and smashed it to pieces. So the same thing with the cowlings. Now, they're unlikely to go flying off the helicopter. You don't really want them banging around causing damage, do you? That's right. Like Tony just said, although this one is not very, it's quite flimsy, but to be honest, if that manages to come down, there's quite a sharp edge there. If it hits you in the back of the head, it does potentially cut your head. Anyway, there we are. But it's not very, and we're into wind here as we parked around early, anticipating this. Yep, come on in. So
Warning light test switches. Push to test.
So we've got a series of warning light buttons. Depending on the helicopter, depends what you see. And we've got things like fuel filter. And what we'll see is on the instrument panel, if I just do that one, you'll see it probably flashing. So why are we doing this? Look, low fuel, if I press and hold, there's a slight delay, up to 5 seconds. If it comes on immediately, it needs to be, the delay needs to be changed. Tail rotor chip, engine fire, main rotor chip, main rotor temperature lights.
Yep.
But that's not all of them. There's far more on the instrument panel. So why haven't we got a button for every single one of them?
The prioritise which ones are the most important?
Yeah, pretty good, Sue. Yeah, not bad. I'd say they're all quite important. But where's, for instance, engine oil pressure, which is really important? It's not on there.
No, you've got the gauge that tells you that.
You have, yeah.
The oil pressure one's already on.
Yes.
Oh,
So
well done.
these are the ones you wouldn't normally necessarily see starting the helicopter up. Whereas we can see, if I don't touch any of those prior to starting the helicopter, there's already certain lights on. And when we start it up and engage the clutch light will come on. When the carbon monoxide light, if I just turn it off and back on again, it'll go through a self-test. The starter light will come on when we press the starter button. And the low RPM one will be testing as well. Governor off, we can actually test that inside the cockpit if I turn the governor off and on. Oil pressure light's already on because it's low on oil pressure. Engine fire was one of the ones we tested. Alternator because it's not working. Auxiliary fuel pump because it's not running at the moment, but we have to test the fuel filter. And the rotor brake light is on, so I'm going to take that off anyway now. So we're actually just testing the lights that either A, are not on right at this moment, or won't come on, or won't come on during the starting up process. That makes sense, everybody? Good.
You can stay inside for the next one. Fuel quantity.
Yeah, that's right. So we're going to check on the gauges. And according to the gauges, we've got 15, 16, 17. Oh, funny enough, I always go for the main tank, although it's the lower, look, but it's the main one. So we've got about, I'm looking at a funny angle, we've got about 17 gallons in there, and some that might even be a tiny bit more than that, possibly 18 and just under 7. So we've probably got somewhere in about 24 gallons of fuel on the gauges. But do we?
Next is battery switch off.
But do we really have that?
The fuel.
Yeah. It says we've got it.
Does that depend on the the angle for
Yes, it
correct
does.
reading?
Yes, and we talk about this all the time. Depending on how the helicopter sits, the gauges might overread, underread. But what I'm trying to say is, do we really have 24 gallons of fuel on board?
It's not usable, even if you do. It's always worth verifying with the dipsticks.
Aha! Somebody mentioned the dipstick. I don't mean the pilot, I hope. Or the co-pilot, or anybody else. Yeah, so how could we verify there really is 24 gallons of fuel in there?
Dip the tanks.
Absolutely. But are you allowed to dip the tanks?
On the 22, you certainly are.
You see, these are bladdered tanks. In this is just a covering on the outside to protect it. Inside there's a sort of a rubber Kevlar bladder tank, crash resistant tank, and you have to be a little bit careful because the fuel cap is quite close to the inside of it, which means if you keep shoving things down there and hit the back of the tank, you can start to weaken it. It is possible. So if you're going to use a dipstick, it needs to be, done with care, and also the dipstick can perhaps have not sharp edges on it or corners or anything along those lines. So who's the Capri pilot?
Yeah.
Do we dip the tanks on the Capri?
I've never done so.
Have you ever seen a dipstick for the for the fuel tank?
Got a capacity.
It has. But how would we verify the fuel is really in there? Oh, you just gave it away. Yeah, you look. You
Yeah.
peer in, don't you? So on the Cadbury, on the left-hand side, nice big aperture for the fuel and very easy. I mean, literally, you can just take the cap off and have a look. Now, admittedly, you can't just visually see, and there's not a calibrated scale inside to tell you how much fuel's in there, but you get a bit of an idea, don't you? If the tank looks empty, the gauges say it's full, something's not quite right, is there? So, of course, we can do exactly the same on the 44, but I mean, it's right up here. You know, if I take the cap off, how am I going to see what's in there?
Get the 8-foot ladder.
Yeah, you get the. Yeah.
I'll just turn it back for you.
That's fine. It's not so bad. Thank you, though. Well, under all of our 44 back right seats, apart from they usually in a cover, is a step.
Oh, clever.
And of course, I'll just pretend for a second, so I've got the phone in my hands. I don't particularly want to shove that over the aperture, but just pretend I've undone that and I could peer in and have a look. But it's quite dark in there. So now what have I got to do?
Use a torch.
Use a torch. Oh, it's so easy. Got such lovely, clever people around me. It's great. All right. So what can happen now then?
Got the torch in.
You drop a torch
Yes.
in the tank, yeah. So you need to be really careful. So here I go with my torch and I'm peering in. Oh, I've just dropped it in the tank. Yeah, so seriously, yeah, be careful. Don't drop it in the tank, please, because
It's a pain in the ass to get out.
it's a real pain to get out. I've got a torch to get it out, but and not that we've ever done it, but what else?
It could block the
But damage it.
internal rate.
Well, there's all sorts of potential risk. What about how hot these torches run,
Yeah.
some of them? So there is a fire risk as well, isn't it? So you've got to be a little bit careful about it, be a bit sensible.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to peer in and verify you've actually got that fuel in, then that's what you would do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So everybody happy with that?
Mm-hmm.
Right, so I'm not going to shove my phone over it for a second. So I'll tell you things, just stick that in the front. Just put that down there for a minute. All right, Lan, luckily we've got a dipstick. Oh, where's she gone? The lady that's holding the dipstick. What did you think I meant? I like the way they all laughed, didn't they? So Holly's got in his not the dipstick.
About 26, I think.
26.
Evaporated, yes. Yeah, about there. It's evaporated, yes, can't see it, but
And obviously play along with 26 in the main tank. Wow. It's nearly full up, is it?
big slope here.
So that doesn't sound quite right. If you've got 26 gallons in the main tank, something's not right here, because the needle didn't say 26 gallons in the main tank. It said probably about 17. What's going on?
It tells you the reading across 2 tanks.
Aha.
You only have
So,
to dip
we've got
the
dipstick a
tank.
second, Holly.
That's the aircraft's tilted back.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see. So we've got one dipstick, and if you look at the top, right at the top there, it says 45 gallons. Not quite at the top, but close, because it's calibrated for both tanks. Not to use on both tanks, because as you can see, it would sit in the main tank right down to the bottom. But if I took that around to the auxiliary tank and tried to use it, the auxiliary tank only goes down to there. So it sits sticking out the top, and the top needs to drop down to actually get the right reading. So this is just a main tank only, allowing for both tanks, but only once the fuel has settled. And what do we mean by settled? Thanks, Ollie. Because something we can't easily see is these tanks are connected, but by a fairly small bored pipe. So that as you fill one tank, the fuel will run across to the other tank, but it will take several minutes for it to stabilize and to balance out. So don't just fuel your aircraft and quickly dip the tank. It won't work like that. You've got to wait a little while. Okay, so on the dip, we sort of said 26 gallons.
Yes.
Yeah, but the gauges reckon 24, 25 at the most. Does that sound right? Because
Gauge underwritten. Oh, that's the unusable. 1 gallon.
potentially unusable, but also you don't really want your gauges overreading, do you?
No, definitely.
You don't want to be in flight thinking, yeah, we've got loads of fuel, and in reality, no, you haven't. So it's not unusual for the gauges to just slightly underread. That's definitely the safer way to have it, without a shadow of a doubt. So you've always got a little bit more than you think. Quite a bit like cars a lot of the time. There's a smidgen more than you realise in there. Yes, there is.
It's good to know.
Yeah, right, yeah, it just depends on the car. All right. So that's taken ages. I mean, gosh, look, it's nearly 8, it's nearly 7 o'clock.
So I was worried about the battery switch off.
Yeah, so you can hear, that's right. I can see Stuart getting twitchy about it because I've been deliberately sort of delaying, thinking that's right. It could flatten the battery.
Yep. So battery switch off.
If we're finished with it,
If you're happy. Well, the next one is auxiliary tank quantity check.
because what will happen later on is we're going to start checking lights as well, aren't we?
True.
So it's the battery back on again. So there is a kind of a sensible way around to do this sometimes, and that is just check everything you need to with the battery on.
Yep.
And we don't need a checklist for that. What could we check with the battery on, or what do we need to check?
External lights and internal lights.
Yep, right, go for it then. Potentially, I'd close the panels, and I can see Tony holding them as well, just while we're doing this.
Sorry, Paul, quick one before we move on. So that step ladder, the that you took out, is there anywhere in the checklist where it says check for that?
No, but then it does say, well, it does. Yes, it does. On the checklist, so I need that out still. On the checklist, it says about use an 8-foot ladder, and we'll discover why later. So that is actually on the checklist of the aircraft, on the front page of it. But we keep that little plastic collapsible one under the seat, so it's always got it with it. Because quite often trying to find an 8-foot ladder, step ladder, is not easy, is it?
No.
And certainly it's quite tricky to keep them in the aircraft. All right, so we've been, they've been doing a good job. We've been putting navigation lights on. If we're flying and it's like to get dark, we need to check the panel lights actually work as well. Just about see it on my fingers. And the panel light control is just here. That increases or decreases them. Put some nav lights on. If we ran round, strobes on as well. Well, that's weird. Doesn't show it. Can you see that flashing?
Yes, now.
Every now and then. How bizarre. Yeah, because the frame rate's different. Anyway, so that's flashing away like a good one. Tail light. Running round. Nav light. Hang on. You got to hang on, Tony. Just put it down a bit. Put it back in. I think I can. So we're prepping Tony to be an instructor. Tony, if you'd like to turn the landing lights on, better check they work. Actually, turn the other lights off so we don't drain the battery. And check the landing light works, please, sir. If you turn that on. Thank you. We run around. We've got a problem. No landing lights. Oh, no.
What are you going to do?
Well, A, that doesn't mean to say we can't go flying.
No.
So, are the landing lights broken?
They don't work off. You can't check them off battery only, can you?
Yes, this is where you need to start getting into your type specific, don't you? And because the landing lights, are certainly the old tungsten filament ones, were like 200 watts each or something, weren't they? Yeah, they were a big old drain that if you left them accidentally switched on, you would get a flat battery. So the safeguarding of that is they'll only work when the clutch is engaged. Now you can actually just engage the clutch. Look, if you want to do it, Tony. You probably can't hear it, but the clutch is now running and the light's on. So we can actually just simply do that. And if you flick the... Hey, look, you can see it straight away outside. Don't even need to look at the front of the helicopter to see they work. Ba-bam. And like I say, you can't hear it, but the clutch is currently running. And it actually sounds really healthy, the clutch. And you can disengage it. Is there any harm in doing that?
If you forget that it's engaged when you start up,
You can't start.
You don't,
The starter inhibitor so it won't start.
you don't really want the clutch being engaged anyway when you don't need to.
Well, it doesn't really do it any damage to have the belts fully tensioned. I mean, crikey, they're going to spend 2,200 running hours being tensioned, aren't they? Theoretically, and all the rest of it. But it's just another drain on the battery, of course, running the clutch motor. But there is also, when we get to the checklist, there is a big argument to actually check the actuation of the clutch to make sure it works properly. So whilst we've got this switched on, we're talking about it, what the heck? Let's go and check the clutch. Might as well do it now whilst the electrics are on. So how do we check that? Well, Tony's going to re-engage the clutch. And just before you do that, hold on. What you can't see is I'm going to start stopwatch and go. Now, I know the engine's not running, so this won't be perfect. I've just started my stopwatch. I can hear it. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Good. That's the clutch motor. I'm listening to make sure it's not making a dreadful grinding noise. It sounds quite smooth. It's not sort of juddering. And what's going to happen in a minute?
Belt should tighten.
Yeah, and if I actually feel the belts, no, they're not that tight yet. And if I put pressure on, you can actually hear the clutch motor changing its tone. We can hear it's under a bit of strain now.
Can't remember. Does the mechanism go up, or is it the bottom one that goes down?
Yeah, good. So it's pushing the whole drive system up at the moment. So it's pushing on the upper pulley, the upper sheaves it's called. All right, the belts like now are really tight. It's on 60 seconds at the moment. And there's literally about 70 seconds. So what? And you hear the clunk. So
Yeah.
that's the column springs, leaf springs, column springs, jumping because they can't hold that tension anymore, and therefore it triggers the micro switch that stops the motor from activating. So there's no harm in doing that. I'm saying when you feel how tight those belts are. If you've never felt, you try and move them.
Oh, well, yeah. Wow.
Really tight.
Yeah.
And they're all just as tight as one another. There's not one that's a bit slack.
No.
So that's not a bad thing. You don't necessarily have to do it every single time, but we're just trying to improve your knowledge as well as just simply checking the helicopter over. Okay. All right. It's not going to do any harm as such, but we won't leave it like that. So if you put it into disengage now, Tony, and listen carefully, wait for it. That's the springs jumping back in again. So and you can almost hear both of them doing it. So we can verify that's working okay. We'll just let that run until it just goes down to the back down to the stop. So why did I time it?
The clutch light should go out after, is it within 72 seconds?
Yeah, it does depend a little bit on how new it is and tensioning and various things, but it is somewhere around about. It shouldn't be less than 60 seconds. It shouldn't really be more than say 90 or 100 seconds. Why?
Because it means there's something wrong with the motor.
Yeah, it basically means there's something probably wrong with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't cutting it out.
Yes, that's right. So the microchip's not cutting it out. I've had that once on a R22 that was kept outside a lot, not one of mine, and engaged the clutch. And so sitting there, I think I was with a student and waiting, and I suddenly thought, "Oh, hang on, that's been a while now." And I said, "Just disengage it." So we had to disengage, shut it down, then go check. Yeah, sure enough, the leaf springs or something down there had corroded to the point whereby they wouldn't move. So it just carried on tensioning, and it would have eventually hit the over travel. There's an over travel wire, but it would have really stretched the belts at that point and possibly done some damage. And certainly if we'd flown with it, that'd have been really bad. And I only knew that because the length of time it took to engage. So it's well worth thinking about that side of things as to how long they typically take to engage. The Capri is slightly different because it's done on engine oil, pressure and flow. We all know in the wintertime they take forever. They can take up to 2 minutes to fully engage, and in summertime with hot oil, about 10 seconds and it's done, isn't it? It's finished and done. So that is variable, but these don't really vary that much, or much of a muchness. Okay. Anything else electric we can test before we turn it off?
I did turn it off because I'm worried about the battery.
Well, the very thing we said.
The iPad.
I don't know, we haven't even got further than that cowl yet, and we ended up cutting it back in again. But only because I wanted to do all the electrics, so they're all done. Yep, so iPad, plug it in, and of course we could then turn that on. Now, all I'm checking is that it's actually got power going to it for a moment. I wouldn't necessarily turn it on and set it all up and make it run, but we could do whilst we were doing all of that. So therefore, what we could have done was put the iPad in, plug it in, and let it sit there with Pilot Aware firing up. If you really wanted to check it worked, but we'll do it before we start the helicopter. And if it doesn't work, we won't start up until we've fathomed that out. But it's something you could do, okay, just to make sure the operation was nice and slick.
Yeah.
And we could make sure the camera worked if we wanted to, couldn't we?
Yeah.
Do the RAD and transponder as well, couldn't you, Paul?
There's a whole load of things, yeah, but I don't want to get bogged down too heavily into that. But you get the idea, because none of this will be on the checklist.
Of course.
Hey, that is running, and you can see it's flashing, and the battery symbol is going up and down, so it's charging, and the numbers are counting up. Hey, fabulous. There we are, we can turn that off. Okay, and we'll come back and see if there's anything else we can think of in a minute. So we'll turn that back off again. Right, let's see if we can carry on then.
So battery switch is off. Auxiliary fuel tank quantity, check.
Yep, so let's just say we've peered in, yes, we've acknowledged there's definitely fuel in there, and it corresponds with the gauge, or what we think.
And it's the fuel filler cap type.
Yes, and in alignment, yes it is. Yep.
Auxiliary fuel tank, no leaks.
All right. How do we know? How do we know if there's a leak?
Firewall there, or front firewall, I'm not sure. Because you can see drips in the bottom there, can't you?
Potentially, yes, and the fuel stains leaves a blue dye behind. But how else could we tell if it was leaking right now?
Did you smell fuel?
Oh my God, yes, significantly. If there's any fuel in there, once you stick your nose in there, one whiff, oh my word, you can smell it a mile off. Yeah. So visually and both by smell. And of course, I've got my trusty torch. You'll have to assume some of it we're sort of doing potentially. I'm having a good look round. There's no sign of any stains or anything. Can't smell any fuel leak. Yep, okay.
Well, while you're there with the torch,
Yep.
fuel lines, no leaks.
Absolutely. So again, looking at any fuel lines of your aircraft, make sure there's no leaks. Nope, all looking good. And they all look like they're fastened up and they've got torque stripes on them. Yep.
Fuel tank sump.
Okay.
Calculator drains sample.
Yeah, that's right. So here we have, this is the drain, and you push it up. So you undo the clip, push it up, and you take a fuel sample. Right. Where's my guinea pig gone? You been out here? So where are we going to drain that into?
A visual cut for inspectors.
So under our back left seat of our 44s, we tend to keep everything else. Spare oil, cloths for oil, cleaning cloths for the screen polish. And in there should be a little vessel for checking the fuel. Hey. Is the jam jar in there as well, Tony?
Yeah.
Great stuff. Would you mind grabbing the jam jar? Lovely, thank you. Love the jam jar. I prefer that one. Duh. Tony's going to very kindly demonstrate. So he's undone the biases clip. Now, what can happen is you can't see it so easily, but the hoses get pinched, especially in the cold weather. But you have to mind you don't break the clips. And I'm just squeezing the hose, make it a bit more round again. There we go. And if Tony pushes the valve up, the fuel flow. I'll put it into the just put it straight into there.
Okay.
Yeah, don't worry about it because we want a decent amount.
Okay.
So just tip that in there a minute. Lovely. Great stuff. Marvellous, that'll do for a minute. Let the pipe drain out, put the clip back on. So if these clips are broken, do we go flying?
Not advisable.
No, it's not a good idea because
They could leak fuel.
yeah, if the fuel leaks, it goes in. Now these firewalls do have drain holes down in the corner, and it drains out and out the bottom of the helicopter. But that's assuming not blocked.
Hmm.
And of course, we want to just check that fuel sample. holding up against a white surface or something, and you can see it's lovely and blue. Where would water sit if it was in there?
Bottom.
Yeah, because water's heavier than the fuel. This fuel's got a specific gravity of 0.72, so it's lighter. Okay, and then the other tank. So you can smell that already, can't you, from a mile off?
Yep.
Great stuff. Any sign of any debris in there? There's a tiny little bit, isn't there? Now, was that already sitting in the jar beforehand? But it's not unusual to find little specks. It's not unusual, just a tiny bit, not lots. Did a fuel sample on a 44 once that come back from another airfield, and I went to go and fly it, and I said, hey, what's all this? It got all these little orange bits in it. And I sort of, drained a bit more. Yeah, absolutely full of orange bits. And it was the bunding from inside of a fuel bowser.
Oh.
It'd been to the back of beyond somewhere, to some rusty old bowser or whatever. Yeah, and the fuel had literally all the orange like rubberization of the inside of some of the containers in it. Yeah, it's horrific. So the whole thing had to be stripped and flushed and whatnot for it to be flown again. Anyway, so no, that looks all looking pretty good. And what else can we do then?
Before we go, there's two drains in there. How do we know which is which?
Well, this one is connected to this tank, which is the auxiliary tank, and the other one, the pipe goes across the other side of the aircraft to the main tank.
Oh, I see that. Yeah.
Auxiliary main, yeah, nice and easy. It don't even need to be labelled; it's quite obvious.
Okay.
Check the last one.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, the under.
Yes. Otherwise, we put that away, and oh damn, it, got to get it back out again. So that's right. We could check the gasculator. So under the helicopter is another drain. And there's no real additional, no water, no real additional sediment or any description in there whatsoever. Now, just a quick technical Robinson question for you people. If we've just checked the gasculator, haven't we? So what fuel have we just checked? You're going to sort of think, what?
Both tanks. Well, fuel at the bottom of the fuel lines.
The fuel just before the engine feed.
Yeah. Any other takers? What am I after? I'm doing that classic kind of making the question a little bit vague to hear what you've got to say about it. Anybody online?
That's the lowest point of the fuel line in the system.
So Tony, you filled this up with fuel this morning, didn't you?
Yeah.
Put that fuel back up, and we haven't used it.
No.
So have we just tested that fuel?
Potentially not.
Because
We sit in the top of the fuel. On top of the existing.
so the gasculator, which we can just about see. Not think my torch and thing. You can just about. Oh, you might not be able to see it on my phone. Anyway, the gasculator. We see it on the 22s. It sits right down in that corner. Yeah, you probably can't see it. It's hiding behind the big induction hose. Okay, so the gasculator is a water trap, and it's also got a filter in there. So just trying to make you think about this. So if we've just filled this helicopter up with fuel and checked just the gasculator, what fuel are we checking? Don't say this helicopter's fuel.
The previous fuel.
You're
Yes.
checking the previous
fuel.
flight.
Yeah.
Because this fuel we put in the helicopter won't have gone through the gasculator yet because it hasn't been run.
Yeah.
So what can happen is you fill the helicopter with fuel, you think, oh, I'll just check the gasculator. Yep, beautiful and clean. You could have pumped a whole load of water in there. You would never know until it's run,
But then would you pick that up on the other two tanks?
which is why we do the other two tanks, yeah. So the tanks will test the fuel that's in there right this second.
Yeah.
So if it had just been filled up, but the gasculator is effectively checking all the previous flights, almost as it were.
Unless they ran it dry.
Unless we're going to try. Okay, good. A bit more technical knowledge. All right. So what we're going to do with that?
So that's the fuel pipe. So gearbox oil.
So we dispose the fuel safely and environmentally.
Fuel the wheel. Fuel.
Tony,
Gearbox oil.
yeah, Tony, yeah, pop a little. And this is why I quite like actually the jam jar, because we can now put the lid back on, goes in the cockpit with us, and it's sealed and doesn't smell. Because otherwise, you put fuel testers and things like that back in the cockpit. What's that fuel I can smell? Everybody says, "Oh, that's all right. It's just a fuel tester." But is it? Right. Sorry.
Gearbox oil, full, no leaks.
Okay. So with my trusty torch, let's try and make sure everybody can see this. Yep, gearbox oil. So there's the sight glass, and it is actually right up to the top. Yep. But you've got to think about how the helicopter's sitting as well. If it's leaning to the left, potentially that'll be a bit low. If it's leaning to the right, it could be literally right at the top of the sight glass. But there's certainly no sign of any leaks. It's an aquamarine sort of colour, a nice, beautiful bluey green colour. Yep, no sign of any leaks.
Similar. Hydraulic system, fluid full, no leaks.
Yes. So as necessary, so you can see the hydraulic fluid level just there. Red fluid, so we can, oops, that's probably better. Red fluid, so we can identify easily if it was a leak.
You don't want to touch it if there is a leak.
No, that's right. Yes, it is a little bit corrosive. Well, it won't immediately burn your skin or anything, but it's not a good idea too.
Rotor brake actuation normal.
Yeah, and that's in here. And hiding around the corner, see if I can do this. Ugh. And Holly's going to activate it. See if I can see it on my screen. Ah, there we are. You can see there's the rotor brake gripping on the shaft. There we go. That's where the brake grips. Now that shaft where it grips onto has been sort of expanded. It's slightly bigger than the actual drive shaft itself, but is right near the gearbox. So if you're a little bit too positive with the brake, especially in hot weather, that heat can transfer and damage the output seal, or the input seal, I should say, of the main rotor gearbox. A bit like on the jet range, if you're a bit too heavy with it, the heat moves from the disc, because it's a disc brake, into the drive shaft coupling and over temps it.
And if you're on your own and you don't have a Holly to help, it's a case of apply, have a look, and then release.
You could do, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Or you can, if you're careful, you can reach around. You can actually feel, just around the back here, you can feel the rotor brake cable. Well,
So
you hear it.
operate.
You can actually hear the switch as well. You can operate it just by hand.
Flex coupling, no cracks.
Yeah, okay, so flex couplings, these you can see the flex coupling is actually the sort of the golden star, the four-pointed star. The white part is a flange, a yoke flange. Checking for no cracks, all the bolts are done with torque stripes and jam nuts and all these sorts of things. No sign of them slipping, etc., etc. Yep.
That's secure, good. Yoke flanges, no cracks.
Yep.
So I covered that. And then the gearbox, hydraulic pump teletemp.
Yes, and also, so remember, there are potentially extra things above and beyond what the list has got, but it has now mentioned. Now that teletemp there is the main rotor gearbox one, and most of us have seen teletemps apart from Cadbury pilots. The teletemp, Fahrenheit at the bottom, degrees Celsius at the top, and they are different scales depending on where they're attached to. And each box has got a number. So the first box in this one is 104 degrees Celsius or 220 Fahrenheit. And if it's reached that temperature, that box goes black and it stays black. It doesn't return back to a clear colour again. And so you can count them up as they go. If there's, so if they're starting to increase, it's a problem. It's not unusual in summer, in the heat we've had, for up to 3 boxes to go black. But the point is, it's about an increase. So what usually happens is the boxes have got a black line drawn after them. If one goes black, the engineers will draw a line to say, look, we know about this. And if it crosses that line, you need to let them know, because things are getting hotter. But none of those are black. There's slight tinge to them. I'm not surprised. And the hydraulic one, where are you? There, you can probably just about see it hiding behind the auxiliary fuel tank. Well, I can see them from down here. And again, it's the first two have just got a slight tinge to them and no signs of any fluid leak.
The control rod ends.
Yeah, and so things like the tail rotor.
Looseners.
And if you move the tail rotor drive, there we are, sorry, the tail rotor, rod ends, etc. And there's a whole load of rod ends hiding behind the back there, yep.
Steel tube frame, no cracks.
So the steel tube frame of the actual, where the gearbox is all mounted, there's no signs of any cracking on it. We can even go right away back there when the time comes.
All fasteners secure.
Now, before I do that, I just want to check all the cooling hoses. These are cooling hoses for the hydraulic fluid. And this one goes down underneath the main rotor gearbox. So does this one. I want to just check that they're all actually secure. And these used to have a nasty habit of cracking, that flange, but it does actually just go around the other side. And all it was is it had become loose on this firewall, that's all. But as long as it didn't crack and snap off, because that's one of the cooling hoses. What else could be?
So when it says fasteners, it does mean the cable ties all over. Is that
Yes,
what it's actually intending to mean? All fasteners.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
So you can include the cable ties on
Yeah,
there.
absolutely. Yep. So all fasteners, everything's kind of cable. Just say cable tied down. There's nothing loose inside there. Yep.
And then it's a tail rotor control.
Yep.
No interference.
Yeah, we've just been moving that, making sure that it's not interfering anywhere. So we moved it down to that in a minute. So it's all free. It's not hitting anything. Yep.
Section 2, main rotor.
Okay. Is there anything else we could be checking in there?
There's no debris?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's not full of grass or animals, mice nesting in there or a cat asleep or something like that.
Any centrifuge on the cowling doors?
Yeah, that's right. Any sort of, oil splattered out anywhere of any sign of any problem of any description. We said about there being no leaks. Even gearbox mountings, we can check that they don't look like they're perished, etc. All these sorts of things. So don't just, for instance, just do what's in the list. There's always above and beyond, isn't there? And you slowly you develop more knowledge about the aircraft of what might be not common problems, but watch out, I've seen this before. But you're just having a good look around. You're not trying to be blind to anything. You want to have a good general look. This one hasn't got it, but our other one's got a built-in ELT that just sits over the other side over there on a bracket. And I read a report about they used to just be Velcroed in. And one day somehow this ELT, not one of ours, broke loose, was rattling around in there, smashing into the drive shaft, the tower of the drive shaft. They landed and discovered it on the next check, and thankfully it hadn't caused a problem. But from that point onwards, it needs to have a second strap around it to secure it in place. So when we look at hers, that's why it's got double on it. It's got a big Velcro strap and then a whacking great cable tie around it to hold it in place.
Sorry, Paul. Being dense, what's the ELT?
Emergency locator transmitter.
Oh, right, thank you.
So some of them have got them built in. The cabbies have got them built in, and so's our other 44. Other ones are just carry on PLBs. Okay, we're done in there for now.
Just one more silly question. So I noticed you had a nice clean jam jar there, and I was wondering why would you not pour your fuel back in the tank instead of carrying it in the cockpit?
Well, what as in the fuel?
Yeah.
Well, we don't really want to carry. We don't really want to carry anything highly flammable in the cockpit with us.
Well, so that's why I asked. So why would you not pour that the sample fuel back in the tank?
Yes, you can do if it's beautiful and clean. But there was a tiny speck of debris in it, and I don't particularly want to put that back in the tank.
Right.
So we've disposed of it accordingly. Yeah. But yes, you could do. But also, there's another reason why I quite like the jam jar, because it won't fit through the cap. Whereas the little test tubes, if you're not careful, it's possible you could end up dropping it in there. And again, we're into that problem again. Oh, blimey, we've got to get it out the tank now, which is not as easy as it sounds.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Main rotor.
Okay.
Just got a caution here.
Yes.
Do not pull down on blades to teeter rotor. To lower a blade, push up on opposite blade.
Yeah, and so suddenly this is where the 8-foot ladder comes from. Now, you can, whilst all this is still open, potentially, as we say, it does say step here. This bit's reinforced. So you can use a step like we had, which is there. Ta-da! Here's one I produced earlier. I better do the demo. Megan? Oh, sorry. Oh, do you want? Oh, you're doing one and the other one as well, aren't you? Do you want to do both? Or Holly? Just keep the battery pack from below. That's it. Lovely. You can climb up there. So I'm going to put the step in the appropriate position for my left foot. I'm careful for my right foot. But what I really need to be careful, which is why we find them broken occasionally, the clips. It's very easy to stand on one of those clips and break it. So I want to and hold onto there as well. I can put my foot in there. So a bit of a step. We can do it if possible. Then we can check and have a good push and pull of everything. Looking for all the jam nuts, torque stripes. Check how much play is in the wishbone link, etc. Push force, making sure our blades. These are full of oil, so I'm checking there's no leaks. Other things I can do is I can wipe my finger around the back of the coning hinges, but just check there's not excessive amounts of. What colour am I looking for? Yeah, reddy brown. Why is that?
That means there's a leak.
Well, no, it's dry, but I guess dust, but it's just making stuff. I found that the colour. not oil. Could be rust for start off, yeah. But round the back of the bees, maybe it's inside those. You have to have a look. We've got some in the office.
Is it pressurized hydraulic?
Pardon?
Is it hydraulic?
No, they're Teflon coated. So it could be the Teflon's being worn out and literally you could get it on your fingers. So the teetering bolt and the conic hinges have all got Teflon coating, just like all of the pitch links have inside here. So if you see some sort of like reddy brown stuff coming out, it's potentially it's wearing the Teflon away and it's factory grade. After my I can just check that the doublers are not delaminated on the blades. And this is where I could spin a blade round and push it up this side so it can look around the other side on top of the blade, etc., etc. Whilst I'm up there, I can see things like pitot tube, the cowling's all attached to these bolts or screws. Then carefully back down. What have I got to be really careful of though, clambering up there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, trees to fall off. We've caught a few students in the class falling off of them. Literally, you have to stand in and you catch them as they come falling off. So it is quite risky if it's wet. It's really slippery on there. Sorry. It's only orange squash. Okay.
Well, you did cover most of it, so I'll just blades clean and no damage or cracks.
Yep.
Caution, verify erosion on lower surface of blades has not exposed skin to the spar bond
Yes.
line.
So therefore, we're going to need to walk up and down those blades then. So walking up and down the blade, lower light, just for talk, I can literally look along leading edge. Cracks it in. This one bonding. Paint's not eroded away where you can actually see the bond line. So knowing how the blades are made, there's a leading edge spar, hollow spar like this. And then the skins are attached to it, they're stuck to it like this and stuck at the back. So you have to imagine there's a spar along there, like so. And what we don't want to see is any of that bond line being exposed. And it's roughly speaking, that the bond line. So in other words, not the paint eroded back that far, even if it's only a tiny bit of a tip, acceptable. Okay, so having checked that one,
There's reference rotor systems description in section 7 of the pilot.
yeah, sorry. Information. You know,
And then while you're up there, you did the pitch change to
Yep.
no leaks. The main hinge bolts sufficient installed.
Yes, they are.
The rod ends free without looseness.
That's right. We can see it now coming this side as well. We see the bolts that have got. If they've got a nut on it, there's a pin going through. They're splitting pod pins over there. I can even see the teeter bump stops just down the bottom there, and they don't look like they've had much impact on, which is good news. Pitch links, jam nuts, torque stripes.
All rod ends free without looseness. All
Yes.
fasteners secure.
It's
So what does it mean by the fastener? I think they've got
faster. So you've got one nut just jamming it into the tightening up, and then there's a second one on top of it locking it up. It's faster. So if you look at the top of that pitch link, there's a second nut on top of the first one, where the white torque stripe is.
understood. Second nut. Swash plate scissors, no excessive looseness.
check that. Yeah.
Upper forward cowl doors, latch.
Okay. Yep. So we're back around there, aren't we?
Step down, they need to latch.
We're finished in that compartment then. Yep.
Good. Next place. Lower cowl door, right side.
Yep.
After the lower
Open.
one. Airbox and duct secure.
See the airbox, the duct inside here. This big black hose.
Engine
All nice and
sheet
secure.
metal. No
Yeah,
cracks.
so I'm just looking at the sheet metal of the aircraft. Of the so that's got to direct all the air that's being sucked in by the fan over the cooling vanes of each cylinder. Yep, all the stuff is not cracked. It's going to leak out air anywhere.
And yeah, fuel lines, no leaks.
Yep.
Oil lines, no leaks or chafing. Don't want that in the summer.
Chafing. There's no chafing of the oil lines.
Exhaust system, no cracks.
Yeah, looks good. No cracks. And how can we tell if the exhaust is leaking?
Oxidization on the metal, possibly.
And what do you mean by that?
Oh, so discoloring any like white or anything.
Good, yes. The white colouring, because if we look at the exhaust, we'd see this. So the deposits of the burnt fuel. So it'd be that colour. So we can look at anywhere where there's an exhaust joint, if we can see everything for that, then we can leave. Now I can't see any. Sometimes you'll get a fraction where the exhaust pipes or the manifolds is connected to the head. So you might just get the tiniest little mere amount, nothing much. So just looking, make sure it's not cracked. It shouldn't be a great old splatter of it. I can look through here. You're not going to see it so easily on camera. I can see all the exhaust that's going down there, and the exhaust box as well. Even it's hiding under here. Yep.
As it's cold, would you consider trying to shake it?
You could
If it's
do.
hot, you wouldn't. But
No, exactly. It's why. You know, you've got gloves as well, but yeah, I wouldn't start rattling that around or sticking your hands in there, like in case it is hot. Yes, you certainly could check the looseness.
throttle linkage, operable.
Okay, so that's not so easy to spot from around this side, but it is down there. On the end of there's a metering unit down there. We can see the throttle moving around it if we were going to move it.
So it's a,
And well, of course, it's a two-person. Yeah, it's a two-person thing.
cowl door latched.
So because the ground is sort of dry, I'm going to have a little lay down for a second. Have a little look up inside here. And ta-da! I can see. So there's the fuel metering unit with the throttle and also the Holly's going to do it, thankfully. So she's now twisting the throttle. You can see that. Oops, hang on. I'm moving the phone around. Just do it again, Holly. Oh, there it is. Just twist it again.
Just the throttle?
Yeah, just the throttle. Hey, you can see all that mechanism moving. Nice one. And the mixture, please. There it is. You can see the mixture moving fully. We're not fouling on anything. Yep. Nice one. And whilst I'm under here, I could have a good look around the engine. Make sure, say, any more exhaust leaks. I can see I can see 3 spark plugs at the moment. Can't see the other ones. Separate oil coolers. Tiny bit of oil, but nothing excessive. Yep, looking good.
Yeah, after cowl door right side.
Okie dokie, I better come back up. I'm too interested in down here in a mo. Because is there anywhere it says about laying down on the floor and looking up under your engine?
No.
No, there isn't. No. Yes. Now, whilst I'm under here, though, I have spotted something. I'll come to it in just a second. In particular, on these, don't really want to see any fuel down here. But this is the overflow. If you overprime them, it will come out of here. But also, if the fuel pump's got a problem, potentially it starts leaking out of here. Well, what I just spotted, although it has now just stopped, fun enough, is there was fuel leaking out of the gas gauge just then. It might just have been residuals in the pipe. So I'll come back and just check that valve, because those little push valves, there's not a particularly tight spring on them, and they're only a little O-ring. So when you're draining them, if you get a bit of dirt caught underneath the O-ring, it does actually carry on dripping, which is why they've got those secondary clips on them as well. No, it's stopped now. It's good. Okie dokie.
Okay, after cowl door right side.
Oh, yep, we're in here now.
Oil cooler door check.
Okay. Well, would you be kind enough to do that? Thank you. So there's a little door here. I'm going to push it open and peer in with my torch and just check there's not too much debris in there. Okay, no, there's nothing too excessive in there. The tricky bit is how you get stuff out of there. Because if you go sticking even if your hand will fit, it's very easy to get it caught like a letterbox, poking your hand through. So it needs to be very carefully done with a vacuum cleaner and a pipe down there, but not rubbing it all over the veins of the oil cooler. But you can actually then suck the debris out of there. Yep, okay, that looks good.
V-belt condition.
Yeah,
check.
so the belts, and I could move them all around, literally rotate them as I go, checking the condition. And it's not oodles of belt material in here. There might be the fine dust, but not lumps of belt. And when I peer across down there, I'm actually looking the other side, and I can see the belts on the far side. And
V-belt
do not,
slack.
they do not look excessively worn, and don't feel too slack. No,
4 centimeters maximum.
that's right. So from this position here, if I push them, Yep, they've not moved more than 4 centimeters. Nice. And we can also tell because when we engage the clutch, the rotor should be turning within 10 seconds. Yeah. So if they're a bit too slack, it'll take more than 10 seconds. Okie dokie.
Sprag clutch. No leaks.
That's right, because in this upper pulley is the sprag clutch, the freewheel unit. And indeed, if I turn the pulley one way, it'll spin quite happily on the shaft. If I turn it the other way, it grips the shaft and rotates the main rotor blades and the tail rotor blades. Oops. Okay, yep, no sign of any leaks.
Upper bearing, no leaks.
No, there's not grease all come flying out of it. And the teletemp looks like it hasn't got any black boxes.
Teletemp, upper bearing, normal.
Yep. And also, there's a torque stripe drawn on drive shaft to the inner race of the bearing. Because if the bearing begins to seize, what happens is the drive shaft starts to spin inside the inner race of the bearing. So the inner race of the bearing. So if that's the drive shaft, the inner race of the bearing should be kind of rigidly attached, so it rotates with it. But if the whole bearings begin to seize, they can start to spin inside, and the torque stripes would move. That wouldn't be good.
Oh.
You'd expect a lot of heat to be generated, and the teletemp would have gone black at that point as well. But
Sheave condition,
yeah, so it looks like it's in good condition. It's not all corroded. No, it looks nice.
check. Flex coupling, no cracks.
So another flex coupling here, that star-shaped thing.
And once again, your nuts secure.
Hey, yep, they're all the jam nuts and torque straps. Now the other thing with flex couplings, if I ping it, it resonates a bit. That's a good sign.
Okay.
Why? It's not a foolproof method, but it's a good sign
It's not cracked anywhere.
because if it was cracked,
Well, it could rip apart in it. When
but how would I tell by pinging it if it's cracked?
it would make a duller.
It would
More
make a dull,
like-
yeah, much more
yeah.
dull sound. Yeah, if you like a bit like a tuning fork, if you ping it, ding. But if you put a crackling,
Nice
if you put your finger on it,
intentions.
yes,
Yeah.
that's right. So if I try and emulate that, if I ping it, I put my finger on it, you can hear the change.
Change gets deep. Okay.
It's a little bit deeper. So that's almost simulating there's a defect in it.
Don't forget to
That's it's
ping,
not foolproof, but it's just a
But
little,
it's a little-
it's just a little extra. It's just one little extra thing you can do.
make sure you ping your flange. Steel
It
tube.
used to be out of interest. It used to be a way of checking the cracks in crankshafts on engines. You'd suspend it by a bit of string or whatever, and ping, and just tap it with like a hammer. It just resonate. Beautiful, beautiful sound. But if it had a crack somewhere in it, wouldn't resonate.
Oh, okay.
It's just one way of checking. That's a well-known method.
Steel tube frame, no cracks.
Yeah. So all the frame of the aircraft, checking there's no cracks. Whilst I'm here, I can even check where it's attached to the tail cone. I can see 1, 2, 3, 4 attachment bolts. Yes, with jam nuts on them, torque straps on them.
While you're there, tail rotor control,
Yep.
no
So the
interference.
bell crank, yeah, it's not hitting any. Look at all these wires around here. So we don't want it to be able to touch any and rub on them, do we? So you often see pilots when they're doing this, it's like, yeah, the tail rotor works. It's like, that's kind of not entirely what we're really testing, is it?
No.
Because we feel that with the feet anyway as well. We're checking it doesn't foul on anything. There's no risk of it jamming. Because if it jams, that gets a bit exciting.
While you attach those, tail cone attachment bolts.
Yep, I've just been checking those. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep.
Cowl door latched.
Yeah, okay. A little bit extra things. So the clutch motor here that's attached to all the clutch mechanism. I can even see the micro switches, those green things down there, the wiring for them, making sure it's not under too much stress, but it's not all flapping around so it can hit the belts. But I'm very interested in the motor, especially compared to an R22. Because the way it's made is on an R22, the motor is already all part of the flange that's then bolted into the rest of the mechanism. You can see it here. But on a 44, the clutch motor is separate in that there's a knurled ring here. You could actually unscrew it and take the clutch motor off. And so, as far as I'm aware, they've always been like that on the 44s and not the 22s. There was luckily it didn't actually have to turn into anything. Actually, it's probably longer than I think now, but a few years ago, there was one of these motors did actually become loose. And where did it fall? Where's it right near?
All the belt in the
All the belts, and it
Right.
and it flapped around in there. And thank God it didn't actually cause a failure of the belts or anything.
One of them carried on going.
Now, one of the tests that we've always done for many, many years is actually just before it had a torque stripe on it, because you'll notice there's a torque stripe on there now, so you can see if it's moved at all. But it's actually just to get hold of the motor and just give it a bit of a wiggle and make sure it's not loose.
Makes sense.
Yeah, damn right. But now we have that torque stripe across, so we started doing that a long time ago, realizing that there's a potential failure point there. There's nothing else, just literally just screwed in. Just done like that. Okay, so that all looks good and secure.
Good. And that was the cow door to latch.
Yeah, and I'm just checking that there's no damage to the ducting for the cooling. Okay, nothing else in there. Lovely. Good.
Engine rear. Is where we're at now, section 5. Cooling fan nut
Yes.
in line with mark.
So it's not coincidental. There's a line through the middle of that big old bolt, or what appears to be a bolt and a nut on there, and onto the fan housing. There's lots of other little lines, and they're just checking all of those other nuts are all tight and not been moved. Why is there a big stripe through the whole lot? Literally, look.
So someone didn't start it properly. You can check if it got over.
Yeah, because what you're looking at, it's not actually the end of the crankshaft, but what you're looking at is a stub that's connected or bolted onto the crankshaft, and it's just tapered. So the fan, big old cooling fan, just sits on a tapered shaft that the nut's very, very tight and holds it in place. But there's no splines, there's no woodruff key trying to hold it in place. So yes, like Stuart just said, if you start one of these with the throttle open, the engine revs so quick and so fast, the fan gets left behind and it moves. So we're checking that's all in line with it, but it's not had some sort of shock loading on it, some description or another along those lines. If I think there'd be other signs, but if a big enough lump of debris got in there, again, that might make the fan shift around. I think with the other evidence, just something, for instance. So it's all nice and light.
Cooling fan, no cracks.
Yeah. There's nothing obvious, no signs of any cracks that I can see, and no debris in here either.
Yeah, it's not something actually about debris.
Yeah.
Fan scroll, no crack.
Yeah, so that's the scroll, and there's like the blades around there and the scroll around the outside. Yep, no sign of any crack.
Tailpipe hanger.
Okay, that's actually down here. So they're talking about the exhaust pipe.
Yeah, had no cracks.
Yeah, so when we look down the top of the exhaust pipe, down this gap under here, I can actually see the hangers of the pipe. Now, this is one of those things, as long as it's not hot, that I can actually now just give a bit of a push and a pull and make sure it's not loose. Yeah, I can see all those hangers. None of them are split. There's 3 of them there.
And that's the end of it there. But I was going to say, don't we check these little?
Yes, we do. That's right. So, yeah, they're riveted in place. Because we definitely do not want one of those coming loose and disappearing down and being sucked into the cooling fan. So just a little bit of a, yeah, look, they're all nice and tight. No sign of any movement.
And that was end of engine rear.
Good.
So we're now onto the empennage.
Good. We're gonna come back to that in just a second. If we just come around the other side for a moment. We've got the same sort of louvers around this side to protect potential debris being sucked in, but this one's different. It's got screws on it. What's that? Is that because the rivets failed and somebody's just screwed it back in place?
No. So you can take it out just in case there's something in there.
Yeah,
You put your
that's right.
arm in
You can
there.
actually get your arm in there and remove any debris that's down there.
Polyproof.
Right, okay. Empennage, yep.
Empennage.
Tail surfaces, no crack. Okay, so we better just start going down. What else is on the list for a minute?
Fasteners, secure. Position light we've checked, and tail rotor guard, no crack.
Yeah, okay, so anything about the tail boom?
So that's probably in the tail rotor. No.
I know, yeah. Funny, isn't it? But it's kind of like all in one, isn't it? So monocoque construction, so its shape is its strength. There are sort of formers inside just to hold its shape, but the shape of strength is made up of sheets of metal, isn't it, all riveted together. So just looking to make sure there's no fretting on any of the rivets, no cracking of the paint, which might suggest any movement either. Incidentally, ducting for cooling air to go in inside that area. What's that hole for?
For the water to drain out.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because one on the sun. That's right. If any water goes in, it's just to drain it out. Okay, so that tail bend. And of course, if I actually stick my head on it and look down it, go around, it's much easier to see any imperfections looking down with the light shining on it. Otherwise, when you just stand from one side, it's not so easy to see tiny little imperfections. So a good old look down there. Yep, all looking good.
You might want to explain what fretting is.
Yep, fitting for rubbing. Literally movement like this of two pieces, in this case of metal, and they'll create, depending on what metal it is, a dust of some description or colour. So there should be no sign of that anywhere along these. What about these little things? Just inspection holes. Now, you're not expected to undo them, please don't. If you unscrew them, what's behind there? Look at this one here.
The drive shaft.
The drive shaft itself, but the hangers for it as well. So it's supported by sprung loaded bearings in there. So you can actually see those. The engineers need to check those and those kind of degrading, spinning, and all the rest of it. Make sure, I'm not going to yank on it, but just make sure our anti-collision light is not loose. Our crudely named idiot guard, because you've got to be an idiot if you're down this end of the helicopter and you need one of these to stop you from walking through here when it's running. Never idea, is it? Anyway, so making sure that's not loose.
Yep, tail rotor guard. No cracks.
Yep, no cracks. So I can't see any sign of the cracking. I'm going to come around the other side and check around there in a minute.
So now the tail rotor.
So, yeah, move on to just might as well understand. Might as well do the horizontal and vertical fins. And there's no harm in, don't go mad on it. But I'm going to get hold of it. Just going to give it a bit of a push and a pull. Why?
Not loose.
Yeah, I want to make sure there's no movement of the horizontal one or the vertical one of any shape or form. It's not meant to scare anybody, but of all the things we can't really lose in helicopters, which makes it very, awkward to fly anymore, things like rotor blades, losing one of those is not a good idea, or both of them. So we definitely need those to be attached.
Yeah.
Or believe it or not, these horizontal and vertical stabilizers. The vertical one, if we just completely removed it, it's still kind of potential we can fly. So we've got a tail rotor we control the yaw, but you lose this, that's a big problem. There's no stability in pitch. The tail can just go up and down and straight for your rotors. So it's well worth making sure it's definitely attached. Good.
Yep. So tail rotor section. Gearbox gelatin.
Yeah, I'm just going to check the upper surface and look on the side. And making sure there's no cracks in which build the bolt. Vertical one. Tail light's not loose. Stinger doesn't look like it's been bent up. What would that be suggestive of? And it's a pretty spoke.
Where somebody's landed heavily or on a slope.
Yeah, and I'm just feeling that for scratch marks in case that's been dragged along the ground with an engine off landing or something else. Yeah. Now, if one of these has had a significant tail strike on the ground, I mean, if it's significant enough, you'll have damage to the tips of your rotors, because you can see there's the stinger. It's not a huge amount lower than rotor, but I think it'd be pretty obvious that if it's bent up, or if it has it buckles the back here. You get rippling in the back because of the stress on it being levered round. So if you see a slight rippling on this back end of the vertical fin, it's not a good sign. It's not unusual for 44s. The Captain hanger's bent up the top there. It's just where it's unfortunately been wheeled into the back of a hangar. So it's not unusual to see that bent. It's chain bent, that's what happens. Right, tail rotor gearbox, yep.
Yep. Gearbox teletemp normal.
Okay, so around this side, you'll see in a second there's a telly. Oh, yeah, I'll come around. There's a teletemp. They can get a little bit discoloured being exposed to the elements. They get changed, but discoloured as in they can go a little bit yellowy, but this one's all nice. No black boxes at the moment, so that's looking really good.
Gearbox oil visible, no leaks.
Yes, so I've shown my torch. Nice, that same as the main rotor gearbox oil, that lovely bluey green colour. No sign of any leaks. It's possible it can come out. This is a breather. It's got holes like a little mushroom under. There's holes underneath it to protect it so water can't get in it. But the air that's in there needs to expand and contract as the oil does. And as we climb and descend, you don't want that gearbox pressurising inside because it'll blow the seals out. So it's not unusual. This one's actually lovely and dry at the moment. Oh, there's a tiniest amount and it stinks. So when we're checking for leaks, if you found oil on the ground under your helicopter, A, it could be somebody else's, B, you'll soon know if it's gearbox oil because it stinks. like a high point here, or it's got a bit of an emotionally sort of fascinating to it.
Chicken.
Yeah. Chicken, yeah. I'll tell you what, the chicken you've been eating is seriously off.
Blades.
Actually smells like my cat, Wayne.
Clean and no damage or cracks.
Okay, just before I get to that, I'm just going to have a look. I want to make sure that the pitch control change is lovely and smooth. There's no sign of excessive play. It's not hitting anything. Can't feel it grinding on anything. And that this housing of the gearbox where it's mounted onto the back of the helicopter, no signs of any cracking in it. I'm not suggesting that we've ever found one that has for 1 second, but it's just quite a serious bit to make sure it's definitely attached. When you think of, it's got quite a lot of work to do, isn't it? I think all the forces.
Sorry, Paul. So we're going through a checklist here. Is there anything you'd say that that might fail that we might still fly with? I mean, I would have thought if anything fails, we just don't fly.
It's a very good point. So please hold that thought. We'll come back to that in 1 second. Okay, we'll come back to that. All right. So pitch links, got all the jam nuts on them.
Yep, blades clean and clear.
Yeah. So the
Pitch
blade
links, no looseness.
So whilst I'm standing up here, the blades. No, so now these are made by one piece of metal is wrapped around and bonded down the back end onto a root that goes in here. It's roughly this sort of shape. It's actually riveted across here, but it's all ground down so you can't see it. So they're not two skins attached to a leading edge. It's all just wrapped around with honeycomb inside there. So not that we'd want it anyway, but if the paint was stripped back, you wouldn't see a join up the front end here. But that still wouldn't be very good because the paint really is kind of protective of the metal to stop erosion and it getting too thin.
Okay, blades clean, no damage, cracks.
Yeah. Now, sorry, go on.
Oh.
As long as I'm not aggressive with it, there's no harm in holding onto the blade and actually feeling the pitch change. And again, feeling if there's any play in there. And you've got Teflon coated bearings here and here. And I want to just check that there's no looseness. So if I'm careful, I'm not going to hold onto it hard. Let's spin it a bit. I'm just going to gently just pull a push up, but with not a lot of force. Okay, now I'm literally using fingertips. Just checking that it doesn't go clong, 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 so I can feel if there's any play. And there isn't any play inside there, which is good. Then there's a Delta 3 teetering fault through here. And what I want to do is try and put my fingers on it and just move the hub a bit and see if that feels like it's got movement, because that's not a good sign.
Yeah.
The elastomerics are sort of worn out then, etc. But no, there's no sign of any looseness on it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pitch links, no looseness. Teeter bearings, check condition.
Just done that.
What we've done is check that it does not rotate. Control bell crank.
Yeah, that was back here. That's something I was testing earlier. Just making sure in the bell crank there's no excessive play and it all moves lovely and smoothly. Yes, it does.
That's the tail rotor section complete. We're back to tail cone.
Okay, a little bit more on the tail of the blade side. As I said, about no sign of any delaminating of the root down the trailing edge. The tips as well. We want to make sure there's no sign, because the tips are bonded into the end of the blade. So I wouldn't want to see any sign of any corrosion on here, delamination, debonding. You know, you lose one of these inserts, these tips, A, you've got to go somewhere, pretty much. B, the vibration be excessive. It might cause a failure. So again, there's no harm in having a little tap, because if it's cracked, it'll have a slightly different sound to it. It won't ring quite so well. And there's no sign of any delamination on them. Bonding, no corrosion. I'm not using a lot of force by the way, turning these around. Look, literally, you can do it on the pub, just sort of fingertip stuff. So if you turn them backwards, they'll potentially try and grip on the blades. So if there's any resistance, I wouldn't keep going. I'll just go forwards with them. But look, literally, just fingertips. You don't have to hang on and wrench them around. Do it gently without any aggressive forward. Yep, they're looking lovely.
Tail cone, very similar as before.
Yep.
Skins.
So once
No
I go back a
crack or
bit,
dent.
making sure, look, this is not loose in any way, shape, but we can't hang on tight to it. We'll grab it. It's not loose. Tail bearing.
Yeah, strobe light condition is checked.
Yep.
And then the third part is antenna.
Okay, yep. Antenna. Make sure it's not loose. That's antenna.
And now we're cowl door left side.
Uh-huh. Okay. Shall I use this cloth?
No.
No, it's a spring cleaning cloth. Please do not use them for wiping your hands on or any oil. because if we then go and wipe it over any of our windows, it makes a hell of a mess. And you can kind of tell if somebody's been using it for that because it might have a slight look, but also you can smell if it's oily. Got Sebastian's old tops. Okay, I'm going to take it out so you can see quite easily. You blow the oil in there. I'm going to put that underneath to collect it. So there we are. We can see the oil level. Now, according to that, it's down to about 7 quarts. And 7 being the minimum for takeoff, and 9 being the maximum. But where was it when we checked it this morning? Over 8. 8. So it's had a half-hour flight. It's gone from over 8 down to 7. That doesn't sound so good. So where's the logic here? Has it got a problem? Is it leaking? Is it burning the oil?
Sometimes oil gets stuck in different parts of the engine on shutdown, so it doesn't
A little
always.
bit, yeah. The oil filter is supposed to hold the oil, but if you leave it a long enough time, it starts to dribble back down. It does it, particularly on the Cadburys. You check the oil on the Cadbury, 6 quart, you run that engine, and then I'll leave it for, say, even half an hour and go check it. That'll be down to about 5.5 because it holds it. And then you check the next day, back up to 6 again. So why is it down to 7?
Still held in the oil filter because it's
At times, it's been over the 12 hours now.
It's on a slope.
It's a good,
Low. And this dipstick itself is not quite, but it's quite near the front of the engine, relatively speaking. So if it's leaning back, yes. Yes. And where it's parked this morning, it's leaning slightly forward. So I have a slightly higher reading. So in truth, it's probably on about 8 quarts, quite literally. So I'm not going to put any in. We quite like them between the 2 marks. We don't like it being down on the lower end of the scale. I know some operators do say no, just run them at 7. But just really do the engine any great favour. But I don't want to get into that sort of discussion. So either way around, make sure your oil level is satisfactory.
Do you want to discuss how it is refueled if it did need a quart?
Yeah, so we do teach our students how to do all that, but you've got to be really careful. So it's not exactly formal training, but as we can see, I'll pretend, doesn't fit. There's not a lot of room in there. So you need to make sure the dipstick's out, and that needs to be put somewhere where it can't be left on the ground or anything. So actually, quite often what we'll do is in the 44s, we'll post it through here, clean it off, post it through here, because it means you can't shut the cowling. Otherwise, it's a case of you put it on a nice bit of cloth that's not going to make a mess and put it on the pilot's seat. So as a rule of thumb, anything you remove off the heli, so if we're going to refuel it, you take the cap off and go put it on the pilot's seat. So hopefully they can't possibly go flying. It's a terrible habit of cats, get left like that, and then they get started up and off they go flying and we find the fuel cap on the helipad. Okay, so it's a bit of an art, this is where it is, but you have to get the oil bottle around that way. Inside, you have to make sure that lid goes into the tube. So you just rest it at a slight angle, and then in one fell swoop, 3, 2, 1, up. Okay, like that. And it fits nicely into the filler tube then. Bloop, 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 fills it up. You try and pour it in slowly, the chances are it'll glug out of here and it goes everywhere down there and makes a right old mess. In this one, we've got an air conditioning pump there right underneath it that's driven by a belt. And the oil goes all over here and all over that belt, which can cause it to slip, etc., etc. So if you're not sure, don't try until you've been shown how to do it. Actually, and the right oil, you'll see Aeroshield W100, Aeroshield W100. The plus just has extra little additives in there for corrosion and all the rest of it.
So we're at cowl door left side, engine oil, 7 to 9 quarts, oil filter, secure, no leak.
So the oil filter at the top there is secured. Quite often have an arrow to point upwards so you can see if they're rotated at all. So I'm just going to put my hand on it. No, it can't be done. Done.
It says battery and relay if located here.
Yes, that's right where the battery is, because it can be they can be in the nose of the helicopter. But no, it's down here.
Is it secure?
It is secure. Yes, it is.
Steel tube frame.
So I'm having a good look around at all the steel tube frames of the helicopter. Yes,
No
all looking good, no cracks.
Engine sheet metal.
Yep,
No
again,
cracks.
so the sheet metal. Can't see all of it, but I can see quite a lot if I poke my head in there. No, it all looks nice and secure.
Exhaust system, no cracks.
Exhaust, I can't see any white puff marks of the exhaust deposits leaking. No.
And then it says cow door to latch, unless you've got any other.
Oh yeah, so it's still once again, it's just a general good look around and make sure there's no blatantly obvious signs. And we're looking also for any wiring that's become loose. So these are HT leads. Make sure they're not rubbing on anything, so the wires aren't chafing anywhere. No, they're not. Looking good.
Section 10, I believe we could read it. Main fuel tank. Filler cap tight.
Yes, it is.
Oh, leakage. That's it. Fuselage left side. Baggage compartments check.
That's right. Now, one more thing just before is that just a bit like I laid down the outside. Now, if you're a little carefully, you can actually hold on to here. So if the floor was not suitable for laying on, you can actually just carefully lean around and have a look up under the helicopter. And from here, again, I can see both oil coolers. I can see the alternator belt. I can see the bottom end of all the belts, make sure they're not all covered in oil. There's no sign of the crankshaft oil seal leaking because it splats oil everywhere around. You always get a bit of oil under the helicopter. Here's the exhaust box and pipe. But I'm also interested where the pipes go into the exhaust box, but they're not leaking. They're not cracked. Okay, that looks pretty good under there. Nice. I didn't have to lay on the floor for that.
But yeah, left side baggage compartment check.
Yeah, and we're looking at the whole view barge as well, making sure there's no signs of impact marks of heavy landings and damage and no skids on cracked, etc. All those sorts of things might come on the checklist. And the baggage compartment. So at some point I'm going to check all of the inside as well. I might leave that for a second.
Yeah, removable controls, secure up installed. Collective control clear.
Yeah, okay, so let's do this one seat, but every seat we should be checking seat for a person. What do I mean by that? Well, it's got a seat belt, but the seat belt works. It extends, but also it locks if I pull it sharp. So it locks in place. Buckle, headset. I'm a bit careful, my hands are grubby. Making sure it's not damaged. It's got its microphone cover or a new one on there. It's not all twisted. And if it's like this one, so these are noise cancelling, but they've only got a phono plug on them. So there's no power supply from the helicopter, not a limo. So these all operate from batteries inside the headsets. So what I'm going to do is, and just pretend I've done the other one, I'm going to turn them on. Just make sure the volumes are turned up for now and that it's flashing green. All looking good. And I'm going to turn them back off again. They should automatically turn themselves off, but they don't always do that. So you can easily accidentally leave them switched on and flatten the batteries. And then hanging the headset up so the microphone doesn't touch anything, otherwise it can just chatter away. And then underneath the seat, you have a good look, make sure there's nothing nasty on there, because in the highly unlikely event of having a bit of a heavy landing, the seat's designed to collapse downwards. So we don't want anything nasty pointing upwards, and it would impede the collapsing of the seat. And we'd do that for all of the seats, lift them all up, checking what's underneath them, seat belts, etc.
Like your doors unlocked and latched and then 14 safety pins.
Yeah, so all of the doors have got some sort of a locking mechanism or safety pin or some description. Sometimes they can have split pins in them as well, so that the doors can't come off their hinges.
Landing gear check. Position light.
Dual controls are all in, secure. Yes, they are. The pedals are the right way around. Just if they're adjustable.
Static port.
Yep. So static port on the other side as well of the helicopter, not blocked.
That's clear. Then we're on to the nose section. Ito tube.
Okay, so feature tube, but I checked that earlier when I climbed up. I had a good look, make sure there's nothing down it.
Windshield condition and cleanliness.
Yes, make sure it's all nice and clean. So you don't want spots on there that we could misconstrue as aircraft in the sky. Yep.
Landing lights check.
Yep, they're not cracked. We know they work. One aim forward and one downwards.
Your string.
Yeah. So we're just checking our strings. Yes, they're attached.
And then it's a past nose section now. Fuselage to the right side.
Yes.
So we come back to the
We kind of come back round, but you could do that at the same time we were around here. It's similar stuff looking inside the helicopter, no sign of heavy landing damage. The doors will got their locking pins on them. Seat belts, adjustable pedals.
etc. And the static port again, that's really
Static port, yeah, that's right. That's static
the
port.
rest of it's to say door, hinge, safety pin, landing gear position.
Yeah.
And then final
And if you do lots of running landings on things like tarmac, you would now need to check the tungsten carbide skid shoes. But how to do that? You would put the wheels on it to be able to lift the skid up, make sure the wheels, there's no way it could drop back down because you want to be looking under there. But I wouldn't stick it's not a good idea to stick your fingers under there when it's been raised off the ground, just in case it drops. But you'd be able to see them all. But that's really only if you do running landings on tarmac.
issue like the Cadbury, checking the bolts at the back. Is that an
These
issue?
don't have it. It's slightly different how these are made. But you would check all these flanges, make sure there's no sign of any cracking on them.
And then, yeah, section 14, cabin interior.
Yeah, that's right. In the interior, make sure everything's set up how you want it to. Have you got your interception procedures, sick bag, whatever it is, kind of thing, etc., etc. Very good. There we are.
Want me to read it?
No, that's
Just the adjustable pedals.
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe it'll be nice one.
good. See, there's always extra things on top of a checklist that you might know experience. Somebody says you can always look out for things as well, and don't be blind to anything. Good look around everything at the end of the day, don't you? Now that's taken a couple of hours. It should do if you're doing it really thoroughly, but with time you can be quicker, and you should end up with dirty hands. If you've got clean hands, you haven't done it properly. Which is why I usually wear gloves, but I thought I'd just do that today, so just to prove it. Marvellous. Go away. Any questions? Just gone quiet.
Yeah, back to the one I asked earlier.
Oh yes.
Would you continue if any of those failed?
Okay. So if we found that one of the rotor blades was missing, no, fun enough, I wouldn't, or any damage to anything along those lines. But how would we know if it's acceptable to go flying with something not right? Any ideas? Well, what we do
Well,
have.
for example, you mentioned how important the tail.
That's right. So there's
tail
no
lamp
way to
was.
go flying with anything along those lines.
Exactly. So,
Aha, it's got this.
how's that different from anything else?
Well, because when we check the helicopter, for instance, right back in the beginning, when we turned the master on, there's certain things that should have come on. So just as an example, if the alternator light didn't come on right now, we have a thing called a minimum equipment list. And when you look at that, it tells you about if it's acceptable to go flying with something not working. Now, as I said, if we found any defects, any cracks or damage or fluid leaks or whatnot, we wouldn't go flying. But if we found maybe that alternator light and looked in the minimum equipment list, what you'll discover is it's acceptable. You can go flying as long as the ammeter works and you make sure you monitor that in flight to check that it is actually charging the battery. If it had a voltmeter down here, you could tell how many volts are on, but you'd have to get that rectified within a certain period of time. I think off the top of my head, it's 3 days after the day of discovery. So you can't keep flying indefinitely like that. But that's known as a minimum equipment list. And if you go onto the Robinson website, which is really good because the manufacturer, you can literally have access to all of the documents of the aircraft, even maintenance manuals and everything. But on there, you'll find a master minimum equipment list, and it will show you through there what might be acceptable to go flying. But it won't say, for instance, if you found a crack in the tail rotor, you can't go flying. It's just common sense. It says there's no way you're going to go anywhere. That would not be a clever idea. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah,
Cool.
It'll be a bit dull boy.
Yes, I mean, at the end of the day, do ask somebody with experience, but you've always got to be a little bit careful. Somebody's like, no, that'll be all right. You need to know for yourself, don't you?
Yeah.
The reason why we check these things is to make sure they're okay. Right, I hope everybody's found that nice and helpful. We're going to dash now before it's not getting dark, but we want to get a move on. I can see Tony's chomping at the bit to go home. So thank you everybody for joining us.
That was good, Paul. Thank you.
Yeah, but the
Thanks,
basics
everybody.
you can apply to any helicopter. All right, cheerio,
Thanks very
everybody.
much.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much.
See you later. Bye for now.